Oh, don't you hate that? How are we, guys? Did you hear? Did you guys hear any of that? Welcome to the show. Hang on. All right, we are live. I'm sure you can hear me now. Apologies about that. I've just gone through the whole spiel, so just disregard what I had to say, and we'll get on with the show. All right, I'd like to actually, Paul, let us know there, mate, whether you can hear us there. I'll wait for you guys. We had this same issue last time, and I think I fixed it, but let us know anyway, guys. We'll see how we go. All right, I'm going to welcome in our guest for tonight. Now you can hear me. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. There's always something, isn't it? This is why we do it live. I'm going to welcome onto the show for about the third time Daniel Smart from Max Boxing and Anthony Cox from The Ring Magazine. How are we, guys?
Good, Lyndon. Good to see you again, mate. And obviously, welcome to all the loyal viewers that tune into your shows. Looking for a good episode, and geez, we've got a bit to get through.
Certainly have, and we'll call it's Anthony, of course, but we'll call you Coxie. That's how we all know you, mate.
Yep.
Welcome to the show, and as I said, one of the writers for Ring Magazine.
Great to be here, Lyndon. First time on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, apologies again for the intro. I think the next one I'll try and get right, but what I was saying is that we're going to cover all three shows this week. We've got the Garcia, Haney, Lopez fight on, well, it's Friday night in the States in New York. We've got Canelo and Scull, not Scull. It's Scull in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. There's all these fights going on Saturday night / Sunday morning here. And then Naoya, the monster, Inoue up against Ramon, Cardenas. Monday morning here in Australia, live from Las Vegas. All right, guys. So first of all, I want to talk about a little bit of news of the week. Daniel, we'll start with you, mate. Tszyu, in my mind, the unexpected rematch with Sebastian Fundora. This had been thrown around a little bit. I must admit, I discounted it, but here we are. He's got that rematch that he was after.
Yeah, come off as a bit of a surprise to me, Lyndon. From what I was hearing, obviously leading up to the announcement yesterday, was that there was going to be every chance that the fight with Keith Thurman was going to come to fruition. Obviously, Team Tszyu has taken another route, and here we are. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for him, and one I'm really looking forward to seeing. It should be a great fight, and Tim's chance for redemption.
Yeah, and Coxie, you've got to hand it to No Limit, don't you? Because they get a lot of flack, and I've been guilty of giving them some flack. I think deserved sometimes, and the fans out there are obviously not shy in coming forward as far as their comments go. But overall, they've done a fantastic job, and especially in this instance, to get Tim Tszyu a world title fight after getting him one last year after the first Fundora fight. Just doing great things behind the scenes. No Limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he's going back into the Lions' Den to try and get it done. Personally, I wouldn't have minded him seeing Tim fight Thurman first, just to, I guess, get a bit more confidence up. But if opportunities like this come along, you got to take them, don't you?
What do you think, Daniel? Same thoughts?
You know what? And look, a lot of people disagree with me, but that's boxing. People can have their opinions, but I actually like this fight better for him. I really, really do. And I was having a discussion with somebody in the boxing community the other day about it, and they actually agree with me. They think, obviously, with Thurman's experience and his big fight experience, he's 36 and 37, but given what I saw, with his comeback against Brock Jarvis, I saw enough that would indicate that he'd have every chance of beating Tim. But given the way Tim performed in the first fight against Fundora, he was just timing him perfectly. His counters were absolutely spot on, and I just think he's got every answer for Fundora, and I can't see him losing. I really don't. I think Fundora likes to fight off the front foot. He likes to be first, and Tim's a very skilled counter puncher, right, mate? I think he's every chance in this fight. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I'm with you. That first fight with Fundora, I mean, he absolutely lit him up in the first 2 rounds. My only probably pushback on that is that's why it's a 12-round fight. A lot of fighters have looked great in the first 2 rounds, but even having said that, I am with you. The way he was countering Sebastian Fundora, lightning quick, was just reading the lead jab from Fundora and just coming back with those counter right hands. I'm with you there. But I think as far as Tim goes, I've got a feeling this was just as much a surprise for him as it was for all of us, because I've got no doubt they're all gearing towards Thurman. And I've got a feeling this has just come from left field. And of course, and I think even Keith Thurman would agree, there's no way he could have knocked back this fight. I mean, it's a world title fight. What do you think, Coxie? What do you think Thurman's thoughts would have been when he got the call saying, sorry, you're out and Fundora's in?
Yeah, look, well, it's called prize fighting for a reason, isn't it? You're fighting for belts and prestige, and you're fighting for money. So obviously, it's a lot more money and a win for Tim, 2-time world champion, and he can kick on from there. So, yeah, it'd be a hard one to turn down.
Yeah, well, Daniel, Fundora did actually say that, hey, this is all about money. And he said, look, it's probably I'll split that out, some other options for him, including Xander Zayas, which is the one fight we all thought he was going to take. So obviously he's looking at the Australian pay-per-view numbers, the crowd numbers, and just the general interest involved. And in the end, probably made a pretty smart decision.
Oh, I think it was a very smart business decision, Lyndon. The word coming out of the United States was that fight with Zayas wasn't going to sell. And, Tim's got a whole country behind him. So, if you look at it from a business perspective, yeah, look, it's a risky fight. It's a really risky fight for Fundora. He really rode his luck in the first fight, given that horrendous cut Tim suffered. But given that there's no cuts this time, I think Tim's a red hot chance. So yeah, business wise, risk versus reward. Big risk, big reward. So let's do it. Let's see it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, big risk, but also the big reward as well. So, Coxie, do you think there's any mental scars from Tim Tszyu? Probably not necessarily from the first Fundora fight. I think, again, we've all sort of given him a pass on that one. But the Murder Zalia fight, I mean, it didn't look like he had any mental scars against Spencer. But Sebastian Fundora was a hell of a different proposition than Joey Spencer. So, hang on, Joe. What is it? Joey Spencer. Not Joey Spence? Yeah, Spencer. Thinking Errol Spence. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, that's why I was sort of saying one more fight just to get over any mental scars there. But I certainly understand why he's taken this fight. We're going to find out on the night, and you're right. It was that last fight that would have perhaps created a little bit of doubt in his mind, and obviously some things he need to tighten up defensively in the gym. And I'm just not sure that the Joey Spencer fight was enough to necessarily overcome that, because it was such an easy fight for Tim. But again, in saying that, you can't turn down these opportunities. And at least with Fundora, he knows what he's in against. He, as both of you have said, he boxed beautifully for the first 2-3 rounds. So it's not an unknown quantity to him. It's not like he's coming in against a totally different style and someone who he doesn't have that ring time with. So that's certainly in his favour, and I think he'll try to pick up not where he left off, but how he started the last fight and just sort of carry it through a lot further. And without the cut, I think we all agree, without the cut, he looked to be, and even with the cut, he boxed very well under very trying circumstances.
Well, we literally had a blindfold on for 10 rounds, didn't he? And it was amazing how well Daniel, he still actually counted Fundora for most of that fight and literally couldn't see.
Yeah, look, fantastic performance of just pure guts and will from Tim. Anybody that ever questioned his heart need not after that fight. That was incredible for a guy to still fight at that world championship level with one eye was although he didn't get the decision, and many people argued he maybe should have. Certainly one of his best performances, despite it being a loss.
Yeah, I'm with you there, mate. And Coxie, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? It was a split decision that could have gone his way, and as I said, he literally had a blindfold on for the whole fight. And I was actually there on the night, and first of all, I couldn't believe that they didn't stop the fight, because I was about 20 rows back, and I could see he was just an absolute mess. And it didn't. And I'm not a doctor, but even I could. And the guys I was sitting with, I was actually sitting with Brian Butler, who used to train the Maloney twins, and he's a very good cut man in his own right. And we're, as I said, 20 rows back, and both of us have said this fight's over. And I was just staggered. Can you believe that a doctor in this day and age would allow a boxer to compete with literally an axe wound in his head?
No, unbelievable. That was the definition of a mask of blood. I'm surprised you didn't get splattered in blood in the 20th row, Lyndon.
Well, I think we're close. I think a few people in front of us had a bit on them, but yeah, no, you're right. But it was just literally just gushing out. It was amazing.
It would have been interesting to hear what Brian Butland had to say. Lyndon, he certainly knows a good.
He has been around a long, long time, Brian. And as I said, a very, very good cut man. And I probably can't say on here what he was actually saying because there's a lot of expletives in there, but pretty much saying what the hell are they doing allowing this fight to continue? This fight should be over. No questions asked. I understand actually, Coxie, that after the second round, you remember, I know we're going over old ground here. I'm sure we've all had our say and done numerous shows and articles in your case, but because it happened right on the bell, the corner man jumped up, and I think there was a bit of a rush, and they had that 30 seconds by the end of by the time they got up into the ring and got themselves organised. The cut man didn't actually have a good an ability to really have a good look at it, even though it was literally spurting out everywhere. So I don't mind they let it go one more round, but after the third round, surely it would have been, guys, I can't stop this fight. Stop this cut. This fight is over.
Yeah, I agree. And look, let it go to a no contest and try and get a rematch down the track. That would have been the smarter move for my money, because that just seemed like a cut that was not going to stop. That you're not going to control. You might control it a little bit, and then it's just going to keep opening up again throughout the fight. So I don't want to sound like too risk averse or anything, but we all saw what happened, and after that third round, it seemed fairly inevitable that it was just going to keep leaking claret. So
that's ancient history now. We're looking ahead, and Daniel, what do you reckon, mate? I think you just said before you think Tszyu gets the job done. I mean, I'm probably asking a silly question here, but what does he have to do differently to win the fight? And I'm probably thinking that your answer is going to be, well, don't get cut. That's probably the first one.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much he needs to change, Lyndon. I just think he needs to stick to his natural game, mate, and just, wait for Fundora to come forward and react accordingly. I think if he does that, mate, he'll cruise to a win. I think Tim Styles all wrong for Fundora. As I said, them taking a massive risk with this fight. But the monetary reward was certainly there. Certainly made sense more than the Zayas fight. I think they knew that, and they went for it, and now they've got it. So, as the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for, mate.
What about you, Coxie? How does Tim get the job done in this one?
Look, he's just got to be his old patient self. The last fight he rushed in terribly and got punished for it. To me, watching Tim come through the pros early on, he showed tremendous patience and improvement fight by fight. But it was always his timing and his patience that impressed me. And if he doesn't rush his work, like Daniel, I think is a real good show in this fight.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, and look, even though Joey Spencer was not a great, probably, what do you call it, an example of what he needs to do going forward, I really like the fact that he went back to probably the pre-Fundora, maybe especially pre-Buckrun Murtazalia fight, where he was calculated. He was a little bit cautious, I suppose, but really calculated in what he did, and I think that's what he needs to do here. I think we can all agree, without going over old ground with the Murtazalia fight, I think we all know what he did wrong in that one and paid the price. But I think if he takes his time, and I'm sure this time with a good camp, by the way, I mean, what do you have, a week and a half to prepare for a 6'6" or 6'7" southpaw, by the way, so not an easy task. But I think this time he's going to have a full camp, a lot of training, sparring with those taller guys. I think all he's got to do is be, as I said, calculated and cool, and just pick his shots. And I think he can really pick apart Sebastian Fundora and bring home the WBC belt. And isn't it amazing, Daniel, that in the space of, just like literally a phone call, you go from the scrap heap to a massive opportunity. I mean, a year ago, on top of the world, 6 months ago, the bottom of the heap and on the scrap heap, literally almost. And now with that one win over Joey Spencer, he's now got an opportunity to be back on top of the world again and talking about fights with the Virgil Ortizes and the Boachoks and the Ortizes, all these types of guys. Did I say Ortiz? Sorry. I mean, all the 154-pounders. So it's a massive opportunity for him, and just how quickly your luck can change in this game.
Yeah, Lennon, spot on, mate. And all it takes is one good win. He certainly did what he needed to do against Spencer. He jumped over. I was expecting a better show from Spencer, but Tim just shut him down, jumped on him and got him out of there within 4 rounds, mate. And that's what's got him back on the radar with the Fundoras and the champions of the division, mate. I think the way that he went about ending that fight in such a particular fashion that's got him this rematch and another shot at those belts.
All right, one last thing, Coxie. I did see as well that the Tank Davis and Lamont Roach fight might be on this card as well, the rematch, which will be massive for Tim, as well as Sam Goodman if he gets past this fight. And do you think that the Tim and Fundora fight will be the main event, or Davis and Roach? I'm thinking Davis and Roach. What are your thoughts?
I think it'll be Davis and Roach. I think Davis is the much bigger draw card over there, and we'd see Fundora Tszyu as the semi-main. That'd be my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. But it should be a massive event over there, and I'm sure there'll be lots of Aussies over there. I was there, as I said, for the last one, and there are Aussies everywhere. Of course, Liam Wilson also fought the night before too, which made it a really good outing. And let's hope, Daniel, that they actually allow people into the weigh-in this time. All the Aussies got locked out last time, and there was almost anarchy over there.
Oh, there would have been, mate. You don't lock the odds.
Yeah.
It's right down the door.
Yeah. Well, don't you reckon, Coxie? I mean, you've probably been to these big fights before. A lot of people, they spend a lot of money to go over to these events. And I've been to so many of them. I can't believe they couldn't get a venue or a room, whatever it is, and they can let the crowd in. I think sometimes the promoters they almost don't read the room properly about what a big event is and what it means to everyone coming over, not just the Aussies. I'm talking about the Brits and whoever else decides to come over for these big fights. And they go, no, we're just going to lock the door and have it private. It's supposed to be a ceremonial weigh-in. I just don't understand it. Yeah. I think, these promoters need to sort of pull the finger out a bit. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, and people are going over there for the full fight experience. They want to go to the weigh-in. They want to be around the festivities. They don't just want to go to the fight on fight night. They're there for the weekend, and they want to soak it all up and be at as many events as possible surrounding the fight. So, look, I think it's foolish to not have access to the fans to go to these ceremonial weigh-ins and any other media events that they can to really engage the crowd. Otherwise, you're really just flogging tickets. But I think boxing fans want more than that.
Oh, they do, and it really sets the scene. And having gone over there so many times, not just overseas, but even in Australia, I mean, it really sets the scene for the show. It's the last time you see both guys. They do the weigh-in, and when they do the face-off, the crowd, each opposition fighter's crowd goes up, and and they really get into it. I just think, the promoters of that show last year, and others that I've been to as well, who don't let people in, I don't understand it. And as I said, just haven't read the room properly and understand what it means to a lot of the fight fans to get over there and see the heroes in action. But anyway, on to this week's fight. We've talked about that fight enough. Let's get into the first one, and it is on Friday night in New York, Times Square. Now, this is Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero, Devin Haney up against Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez up against Arnold Barboza Jr. It does say May 2nd there. Here in Australia, of course, would be May the 3rd. Now, Daniel, first of all, what are your thoughts of the show being in Times Square in front of a VIP audience?
Look, it'd certainly be something different. And, I mean, that's what we've seen with the Turkey LL Sheikh era. We're seeing something different, and we're getting looks as boxing fans that we've never really had before. So, I know everybody I've spoken to, including Anthony, is certainly looking forward to it. And it's certainly something different. And, And it's the return of the master himself. It's Jim Lampley. So, mate, what a show. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It should be a massive one. So, Coxie, what are your thoughts this day and age of where they're looking at, they're looking at Alcatraz and maybe the Brooklyn Bridge and the Great Wall of China and all this sort of stuff. Maybe the Las Vegas Strip will be next. Who knows? But do you think this is a good thing for boxing or a bad thing?
I don't mind promoters trying something different. I'm all for that, and either it's going to succeed or it'll fail, and that'll, the proof will be in the pudding there. It'd be nice to have, actual fans there, though. That's the thing. It kind of sticks in my craw a little bit that it's going to be a VIP audience, making it kind of, sort of an exclusive event. But in saying that, so many fans just watch on TV anyway. That's the major part of the supporter base. So, look, it could turn out to be a raging success. It might have a really dull atmosphere with the VIPs there. But look, I'm all for people trying something different. And really, let's face it, boxing's a TV sport as much as anything, more so than a live sport in many regards. And as we all know, we've all been to multiple fights where we've been up in the nosebleeds and you're either looking at the screen or you need a pair of binoculars to see what's going on in the ring. So, so maybe crowds are a little bit overrated in one regard, but yeah, I still like the idea of the fans being able to. Well, again, perfect example of where the fans should be at least part of the festivities and be allowed into the weigh-in and things like that, so they can still feel part of that big fight night.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a great event on TV with the whole Times Square sort of stuff in the background. I've been to Times Square a couple of times. I'm interested to see how they're all going to section it all off. And I mean, they get so many tourists and everything there, and even just everyday traffic sort of going through. So I'm sure they've got a plan, and they've spoken with the city about how best to do it. But yeah, I think it's, as you said, it's more of a TV event these days, and I'm sure it'll look great. But I still like the old, having the crowd there, and maybe I'm just getting old. Who knows? But we'll get into the first fight. Now, I'm not sure what order this is going to be in. Now, apparently, I think we've all thought that Garcia and Romero is going to be the main event, but apparently they've been told that the order hasn't been 100% organised yet. I would think that Garcia and Romero will be the one, but we'll start at, well, I think the best fight on the card, if I'm being honest, is Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barboza Jr. So Lopez 21-1, Barboza 32-0. Lopez coming off a I think it was Steve Claggett, wasn't it? Yeah, in June last year, 12-round decision over Steve Claggett. Arnold Barboza Jr. coming off that decision win over Jack Catterall back in February in Manchester. Daniel, we'll go to you first, mate. Thoughts on Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza Jr.?
Yeah, super dangerous fight for Teo. Super dangerous. I give Barboza every chance in this one. I think it's I think this is probably the fight, like you said, Lyndon, the fight of the card for mine. Some of Barboza Jr.'s notable wins, against some super tough competition. You got Mike Alvarado, Jose Pedraza, and coming off a really impressive win off Jack Catterall too, who at the time was absolutely flying Jack Catterall. So his resume looks pretty good. The only downside that I see to Barboza is he probably doesn't have KO power as such.
Yeah, 11 knockouts,
11 knockouts. Having said that, though, he did stop Mike Alvarado, who's as tough as teak. So, look, this is probably the most evenly matched fight on the card. Having said that, you just don't know what Teo's going to show up. He's a guy that looks to me, he needs a big name to fight, to get up. He needs a big name to get up for a fight. Because we've seen what happens when he doesn't get up for fights and he takes people lightly. He got beaten like he did against George Kambosos. So, look, I expected to go to the cards, mate, and I think purely on probably the last maybe 3 or 4 fights each guy has had, mate, I'm picking an upset. I'm going Barboza.
Wow. Okay, over Teo.
Yep. I'm going Barboza by points. Think of that what you will, mate. But yeah, I just think Barboza's going to be hard to get out of there, mate. He's got a great chin. He's been hit with some bombs before. As I said, mate, he's if you beat him with the likes of Pedrosa and Alvarado, mate, your chin holds up. You got something going for you. But I'm calling an upset on this one, mate. I'm picking Barboza on points.
And it is for the WBO 140-pound title. What about you, Coxie? He did look pretty good in his last fight, Barboza, as did Lopez. Do you think this is the fight he can get up for, or he might struggle, like Daniel said?
Look, I'm kind of the same opinion as Daniel. Lopez kind of blows hot and cold. At his best, he's phenomenal. But I don't know if Barboza Jr. is the name that he'll get up for. And if you look back at Lopez's performances, he seems to put in a cracker of a one and then a pedestrian one. So I don't know if he's after the Steve Claggett fight shutout. I don't know if he's due for a poor showing here or not. Barboza Jr. is one that I've probably underrated a bit in the past. But certainly his performance against Catterall, who was a firm favourite going into that fight, really impressed me. And I think Barboza Jr. has continued to improve and mature. Look, if the best version of Lopez turns up, I think he wins. But if he's even a little bit underdone, like Daniel, I could see Barboza getting over on him.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same. I 100% agree as far as Tszyu goes, but I've just got a feeling Barboza has almost just rattled his cage a little bit this week. He refused to face off with him, refused to shake his hand, and there's obviously barbs going everywhere, although that is Teofimo Lopez every single fight, I suppose, isn't it? But I'm with you, Coxie. I wasn't that impressed with Barboza up until probably the Catterall fight. Now, not that Catterall's absolute world beater, but he's a very good, awkward, tough type of fighter. He's had some good wins himself, and I thought he actually looked like he improved a lot. But I'm going to go for good Tszyu in this fight to turn up, and I think if he comes close to being anywhere near, we've seen him in the past, I think he can outbox Arnold Barboza. I just think he's a little bit slow with his hands and his feet, and I just don't think you want to be that type of fighter against Lopez, who's such a really good counter puncher, has got good movement either way. He can get caught up sometimes, Lopez, get a little bit emotionally involved and get caught up in a little bit of a firefight and get caught, as he did against George, of course, Kambosos. But I'm going to go for Teofimo Lopez on points in this one. A unanimous decision over Arnold Barboza Jr. Let's go to the second fight on the card, we'll call it. It's Devin Haney, 31-0, up against Jose Ramirez, 29-2. Both former world champions. Devin Haney coming off the loss to Ryan Garcia a year ago. So it was in April last year. Jose Ramirez coming off the loss to Arnold Barboza back in November. We'll start with you, Daniel. Thoughts on Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez?
Yeah, again, another interesting fight, Lyndon. Look, I think Devin Haney can bounce back in this fight. As I said, it's always interesting to see a champion fighter come back after he's been knocked out and been stopped or been beaten for the first time. It's we've seen it happen to guys and they've never been the same. But then we've seen the guys, some guys just come back and just handle business like it was nothing. So Devin Haney is a pound for pound fighter. I don't care what he says. I've got him in my top 10. Look, Ramirez is no mug, mate. Make no mistake. It's not going to be easy for him. He lost a very competitive fight to Barboza and he's beaten the likes of Victor Postel. Maurice Hooker, Pedraza, Richard Comey, those guys. He's fought quality. Ramirez is no mug. And, he lost a super lightweight unification fight to Josh Taylor, and that was only by 1 or 2 rounds. Yeah. So, guys talented. But, look, I think Devin's on another level, and, I think he'll be looking to bounce back and looking to redeem himself and get his career back on track. So, I am going with the Devin Haney win on points, mate.
What about you, Coxie?
Yeah, again, it pains. Sorry, I'm not trying to just keep agreeing with you, Daniel, but yeah, that beating he took from Garcia, how he bounces back from that, it's all well and good to go, oh, it was a no contest, so it's not a loss, but and you know, you can say, okay, Garcia was juiced to the gills and came in overweight and everything else. It doesn't take away from the fact that you got beat up for 12 rounds, basically. And we really don't know if that's going to take a toll on Haney in this fight, or if he's going to come back just the way he was before. And that's probably my only question mark around Haney in this fight. I think he's got too much for Ramirez. But I think Ramirez gives him some good work in there. And unless Haney's damaged goods after that Garcia fight, I like him to win this one on points.
I'm with you there. As just fascinated on what the Devin Haney that turns up. I've got a feeling that, well, first of all, I think Jose Ramirez is the perfect opponent for Haney. Well, maybe slightly better than maybe he might have wanted, but his style wise, I think he's perfect for Devin. He's typical Mexican fighter, like very, very well balanced, and he's got a good kit of punches and all that sort of stuff. Likes to rip and hook and can punch. But I just think he's a little bit slow, and I just think with Devin Haney, with his foot speed, his lateral movement, his combination punching, and just his IQ overall, I suppose, I just think he's going to have a bit too much for Ramirez. I've got a feeling though we might not see the best of Haney for the first 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds. I think that beating last year of Garcia is just probably going to be linger in the background. But I think once he gets into his groove, once he gets his rhythm, I think we're going to see the old Devin Haney. The confidence will rise. And I think he beats Jose Ramirez by a pretty comfortable decision in the end. I just can't see Ramirez being able to pin him down and be able to set his punches and rip and hook and everything else that he does. So, look, I take my hat off to Haney for taking the fight because I think Ramirez is a very, very dangerous guy. And like you said, Daniel, he's got a very, very good resume and some good wins against some very good fighters. But I'm going to go with Devin Haney, who I think, like you, is a pound-for-pound top 10 fighter. I wouldn't have him in there now because he hasn't had a win since Garcia, but before that, definitely had him in the pound-for-pound top 10. And you'll obviously get another shot at Garcia going forward to prove his credentials. So I think we've all gone for Devin Haney in that one. Let's get to the main event, Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero. Romero coming off a 10-round decision over Manuel. I was going to say James. I think they pronounce it Jaimes or something like that. I think they pronounced it. I'm going to call him James because that's the Aussie way. Ryan Garcia. I was actually at that fight too. That was on the Belunga and Canelo fight. He didn't look too bad. Garcia, of course, coming off. Well, I was going to say the win over Devin Haney, Daniel, but it was actually a no contest. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, it was a win. Come on.
Yeah.
Look, he had a speck of Osterone in his system. Like, wouldn't have mattered, mate. Seriously, wouldn't have mattered. He absolutely schooled Haney. And look, he wins this fight by however means he wants. Really, I don't know how this clown Romero keeps getting shots at titles. Your mouth's only going to take you so far, but he's in for a beating, mate. He really is.
Yeah. What's the prediction? Daniel, who do you think? Garcia, stoppage? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Coxie, what about you, mate?
Yeah, look, it's Garcia's fight to lose. He's got Rolly Romero covered in every area, and I've never really rated Romero. He's an entertaining enough fighter, but not genuine world class. And I think Garcia is just going to have his way with him, stop him between 6 and 8, maybe even sooner. I just think it'll be a pretty one-sided beatdown, and that left hook is just going to keep finding Rolly's chin.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I was actually just going to say myself that I'm thinking sort of 6th or 7th round knockout. I just think I was watching a little bit of Romero's last fight against Jaimes or James or however you pronounce his name, and I've got no idea how this guy's managed to get this far and continue to get the fights that he gets. And we saw him against Pitbull Cruz. Yeah, well, he does talk it up a fair bit, doesn't he? And that night against Pitbull Cruz on the undercard of Tim and Fundora, when he got absolutely battered from pillar to post in that fight and got stopped. The thing I see most of all Romero against Garcia is that Romero, when he comes out, he goes in a straight line with his chin up in the air. He almost attempts to do the the Philly shell or whatever you call it, but he hasn't really got it right. So he opens himself up to all sorts of punches, and that left hook from Garcia, that whipping left hook that just comes from nowhere, you can just see it landing at some stage. Who knows? Maybe he might have some success in the first 3 or 4 rounds. He's awkward. He has a bit of a crack, but you can just see that Garcia, once he really decides to put the foot down, I think he gets Romero out of there in 6 or 7 rounds, and pretty brutal fashion. So either way, there's one other fight on that card, by the way, guys. Lavelle Whittington 1-2-1 against Ryoto Susumi, making his debut. I don't know why he'd even bother putting that fight on, but they're on there for whatever reason. So just the 4 fights on the card. So now that card is available on Foxtel or Main Event for $50. And I think it's also on DAZN. You can get the package for, I think, $60 for 2 of the cards, the Canelo card as well. So jump on there if you want to buy that one. But if you want that card just by itself, it's $49.99 on Main Event. All right, let's get to the next card, and this will be Saturday night in Saudi Arabia, Sunday morning here in Australia. It's Canelo Alvarez against William Scull. That's how you apparently pronounce it, Daniel. It's not Scull, it's Scull. Yes, I was watching a few YouTube videos with him today. Maybe the commentary wasn't in English, so maybe that's just the way they pronounce it. But I was under the impression it was William Scull, but it's William Scull. But either way, mate, it is May the 3rd, Saudi Arabia. It's a big card. On the undercard of that, by the way, we've got Martin Bakole up against Efe Ajagba, and in the heavyweights, Jaime Munguia with a rematch against Bruno Sarache, Badu Jack up against Naoya, how do you pronounce that, Michelangelo, and of course, the big fight, Canelo and Scull. First of all, Daniel, you don't have to go through all the fights there, mate, just the main ones, Munguia, Jack, and Bakole, if you want to mention him as well. Thoughts on the card?
Yeah, it should be a... don't know about this card, Lyndon, to be honest with you.
It's a bit dull, isn't it?
To be honest, we'll
start with Munguia and Sarace. Of course, Sarace had the upset win last time.
I think Munguia will get that one back. Look, sometimes fighters just make mistakes and they get caught. That's the game, and that's professional boxing. And he made a mistake and he paid for it. I think Munguia is a good fighter. He's a good fighter. Look, he won't make that same mistake twice. He won't pull out with his hands down again. He won't do it. So I'd expect him to get that one back. What was the other fight, Lyndon? Sorry.
We've got Martin Bakole and Efe Ajagba as in the heavyweights.
Yep. Bakole. Yeah. Has to.
Well, coming off the second round knockout to Joseph Parker, only a couple of months ago, so it's a pretty quick turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty quick turnaround, but I guess, I'm gathering anyway, is that he's had a full fight camp and he's ready to go, and if he finds that chin, she's good night. But I think Bakole by knockout in that one.
Yep, and the other one was Badu Jack and Naoya Michelangelo. Now, I must admit, I know absolutely nothing about Michelangelo. He's 27-2. Badu Jack, now he hasn't fought for a while, has he? He hasn't fought for over 2 years, against Alunga Makabu back in February of 2023. But he is the reigning WBC cruiserweight title. Only the WBC could allow him to keep his belt. I know he's had different reasons for being out, but the question I'll ask you, Daniel, is probably more so not necessarily this fight, but Badu Jack, how do you think our man Jai Patai would go against him?
Oh, mate. If Jack takes that fight, he's a fool.
Well, it's got to be for the money, doesn't it?
Well, it has to be. I mean, look, even if he got offered 4 or 5, I wouldn't take it, mate. It'd be not even in the same ballpark. Yeah. Not even in his prime. I've always thought Badu Jack was overrated, to be honest. He got absolutely no show against Jai Patai, mate. No. None whatsoever.
No, I agree. We'll come back to the main. Sorry, mate, I lost you there.
That's right. Having said that, he should win this.
Yeah. I'll come back to the main event in a sec, but we'll go to you, Coxie, as well with the undercard. So, again, we've got Bakole and Ajagba for the first one. Munguia, Sriracha, and Jack versus whoever that guy is there. So, first of all, Piccoli and a Jagba, what are your thoughts? And do you think it's too quick for Piccoli to come back after what? It's been 2 months since he got knocked out by Joseph Parker.
Yeah, good question. I reckon this is probably the best fight on the card, and I'm not exactly a heavyweight guy. Look, he took the Parker fight on short notice, so I can kind of forgive him that loss. The fact it was over so quickly, it wasn't like he boxed for 10 rounds and took a ton of punishment. So maybe the timing isn't too bad. If your Jagba's a handy enough heavyweight, I favour Piccoli though. I just think he's got a bit more in him for that fight. Jaime Munguia and Bruno Sriracha, I same as Daniel. I think Munguia probably took Bruno a bit lightly the first time around, which again you can't do with anyone. But it's always hard to get up for sort of lesser known fighters there. So I think Munguia will get through him and probably stop him at some stage in the fight there.
What about Badu Jack?
Yeah, look, again, 41 years old, former 168 and 175 pounder, inactive. And again, I haven't seen his opponent fight before. But, geez, I don't really think Jack has any business at cruiserweight, to be honest. I think he probably just got sick of making weight and saw an opportunity up there at the higher weight and later in his career. Look, I'm going to go with the Armenian in that one, just with no logic behind it, but just the younger man. And his only losses were to Breedis and the Polish guy, both on points. So I'm
just looking at his resume now as you say that. Yeah, you're right. He lost in 2018 to Marius Breedis, and now that's the guy that I think stopped Danny Green, wasn't it? Is it Christoph Wadajakovic or whatever his name is?
Christoph Ladar.
Whatever. He's the Polish guy is what I'm going to call him. Can't pronounce my own name sometimes, let alone his.
I'll that's the way I'll lean on that one. But again, I've no science behind that. Haven't seen the bloke fight, but I'm just wondering if Jack's a little bit long in the tooth and fighting outside his natural weight class, 41, 2 years off.
Yeah, I'm
sort of leaning the other way, but that's just a guess as much as anything.
All right, well, I'll back you up there. I've never seen this guy fight, but looking at his resume, he looks pretty durable. And you think Badu Jack being out for so long, he's vulnerable. So I'm going to go with him at an upset as well. I think Jaime Munguia will right the wrongs of that last fight. Look, he just got careless. He had Sriracha down early in the fight and looked like he had him on toast, and he just got caught. So I'm pretty sure you'll see a lot more polished version of Munguia this time, one that really means business and is switched on. And the other one, I think Piccoli should win, but not with a lot of confidence. I think a Jagba is a real good chance to win this fight, but I'll go with the narrative and go with Martin Piccoli. We'll stick with him anyway. So look, but Daniel, the undercard as a whole, I would have thought with having Canelo Alvarez in his debut fight under Riyadh's season, they would have really rolled out the big fights and stacked the card. I think this is the worst undercard of any Riyadh fight we've seen.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. Very underwhelming. I had a look at it the other day, and I just found it very, very hard to get excited about it. And then you look at the main event, you find it very hard to get excited about that as well. I mean, you think obviously we'll touch on that in a minute, the main event, but not really excited about this one. I think all eyes will be on the card in New York this weekend.
I think so. Well, what do you think of the main event then? Canelo Alvarez, William Scull. Now, he has been criticised a lot. I'm going to keep calling him Scull, by the way. I can't call him Scull. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. It's William Scull. That's as the Australian accent. That's why I'm going to pronounce it, Scull. But he has copped a lot of criticism, Daniel, for taking the fight with Scull. But, I mean, as limited as we know about Scull, the fact is he's got that IBF belt, and surely that's the thing that Canelo's after. So does it really matter whether he's unknown? I mean, he's got the belt, and that's who he needs to fight.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Look, if he's got a belt, he's got a belt. You know, it's one in his very large trophy cabinet, I'd presume. So, yeah, look, it's you know, the only real notable wins I can see that Scull or Scull
Scull, yeah.
against is Shishkin. You know, and he was 16-0 and he was undefeated coming into that fight with Scull. So, yeah, I just don't. I just don't see where he wins. I just don't. So, yeah, I'm expecting Canelo to win by however he likes.
So, yeah, I'm with you. So, Anthony, so like Daniel said, he's coming off that win over Vladimir Shishkin in October. That was in Germany. That was for the vacant title. And then Canelo coming off the win over Belunga last September. So, what are your thoughts? Has Scull got any chance whatsoever against Canelo?
None. But before I get into that, Scull was a mandatory for Canelo, and he gave up the IBF belt because he didn't want to face him. And now he's facing him, obviously, because he's getting that big bag to do it over in Saudi Arabia. So I find that an interesting narrative there. He didn't want to face this unknown fighter in a mandatory defense.
You blame him, though?
Nah. I'll never blame a bloke for making a quid.
Yeah.
But, yeah, look, Scull reportedly had, say, 400 amateur fights. He's from the Cuban system. To me, he still boxes like he's in the amateur system. He tries to pot shot. He really only throws single punches. In that fight with Shishkin, I think the best combination he threw was just a 1-2. He's got a sneaky way of throwing his punches, but he has really low output and just looks to kind of be a bit of a sniper and pot shot from range when his opponent comes in. And even in that fight, in the 12th round, Shishkin seemed to have him in trouble there too. It just seemed like he got started a little bit too late and probably followed Scull around the ring too much without cutting him off. And that's something that Scull won't get away with Canelo. Canelo's going to be cutting off those angles and making him work. And yeah, I just don't see it any other way than a Canelo win. And even though Canelo hasn't had a knockout in, 5 fights or something,
I think Caleb Plant, I think, was his last one, I think.
Yeah, Caleb Plant, yeah. But I see this ending at some stage inside the distance, probably in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Look, I've had a little bit of a look. Obviously saw the Shishkin fight, but I've gone back had a look at a little bit of his portfolio, I suppose. And look, he looks the part. He's a big, strong guy. Obviously a Cuban fighter, so you never underestimate them. They've always ruled the amateurs, and he looks like a big puncher, but he's only had 9 KOs in 23 wins. And you're right, his output's not high. I've just got a feeling he's been look okay because of the limited opposition he's fought. I've just got a feeling when he gets in with Canelo, like Canelo did when he sort of went through. Actually, he went through the phase when he beat Rocky Fielding and what was his name, Callum Smith and Yildirim. He sort of went through that sort of phase where he was just wiping out all these guys with ease who were so overmatched. And I've just got a feeling that William Scull is going to be another one of those guys he looks the part, but I've just got a feeling that Canelo will just do what he pleases. He might, as I say, play with his food for 3, 4, 5 rounds. I think when he decides to step it up and really put the heat on Scull, I can probably see Scull folding in maybe 6, 7, 8 rounds. Canelo, I just think, does what he pleases, and he tends to make these inferior fighters really pay as the fight goes on. And I think with Scull, once the heat goes out of the fight and the emotion goes out of the fight, experience kicks in, and Canelo just being just a lot better fighter overall, I just think he cuts Scull down and gets him out of there in between 6 and 8. So it'll be entertaining while it lasts, though, because Scull does like to come and have a crack. But as they always say, there's levels in this sport, and Canelo Alvarez is about 5 levels above William Scull. So I think we're all in agreement that it should be an easy night's work for Canelo Alvarez. Let's get to the last card. Now, we'll probably just pretty much cover the main fight, maybe 1 or 2 the undercard fights on this one. Of course, it's Naoya Inoue, or Inoue, however you might want to pronounce it, against Ramon Cardenas, May 4th in Las Vegas at the, where is it? The MGM, is it? T-Mobile. The undercard, I'll go through it there. Well, just the main ones there, some of the main fights. Emiliano Vargas, I'm a big fan of him. He's up against one Leon. Vargas is 13-0. Leon is 11-2-1. There is Raiz Alim's on the card, 21-1. He's up against Rudy Garcia, 13-1-1. And probably the WBO featherweight title fight, Rafael Espinoza, 26-0 against Edward Vasquez, 17-2. Daniel, first thoughts on the card, and then we'll get to the main event when we go around again.
Yeah, don't know a lot about these fighters on the undercard, Len.
Not the opponents, not the B-sides anyway.
Yeah, no, look, the only name I really knew there was Emiliano Vargas, obviously the son of the great Fernando. He definitely, I agree with him, mate, definitely one to watch out for. Definitely got a lot of his father's traits. So I'd expect him to carry on his winning ways there. Who are the other two, mate?
Probably we've got the WBO featherweight title fight, Rafael Espinoza against Edward Vasquez. I haven't seen much of any of Vasquez, if I'm being honest, but have seen a little bit of Espinoza. Do you think, Daniel, that they may be putting on this card, obviously for contractual reasons, with Top Rank, but also maybe as a potential opponent for Inoue when he goes to 126?
Yeah, definitely. That could well be the case, mate. Absolutely. But yeah, look, it's it'll be interesting to see how many they get to that event. To see whether
T-Mobile.
Absolutely. There's a lot of seats to fill, and given Inoue hasn't exactly established a footprint into the American market, it's going to be really interesting to see how many people turn out to watch the great man.
What do you about you, Coxie? What do you know about these guys on the undercard?
Yeah, sure. Well, I presume one of the main reasons they've got so many Mexicans on there is precisely to fill seats at the arena.
And Cinco de Mayo weekend as well, of course.
Yeah, so that's a big push there. Look, I don't know a lot about a lot of the guys on the undercard. Rafael Espinoza, I do know. A really tall featherweight and 6 foot tall, and he's one of those tall, rangy guys who, when he fights inside, it's almost like he's fighting at mid-range because his levers are that long. So it makes it really difficult for opponents. He's got 2 wins over Rabisi Ramirez, a majority decision the first time, then a TKO 6 in December. I really rate the guy. He's again, very much fights in the Mexican style, doesn't use that sort of length and reach to box from the outside. He likes to come forward and get in the trenches there. Vasquez is probably best known for his majority decision loss to Joe Cordina for the IBF title in Monte Carlo in November 2023. He's had 2 wins since then. He's a solid enough fighter, but I don't think he gets over Espinoza, but I think he gives a good account of himself in the sense that he'll make it an entertaining fight, because he's certainly a come-forward fighter too. So I think that'll be a pretty action-packed sort of made-for-TV sort of battle, but I see Espinoza coming out on top in that one. Yeah,
and it should be an entertaining fight. I'm just noticing there, all the Mexicans on the card, and as I said, it is Cinco de Mayo weekend, which is an awesome time to be in Vegas. When we were at the Tszyu and Fundora fight last year, when Isaac Pitbull Cruz was in there battering Roller Romero. I think I almost thought the roof was going to lift off. That's how loud it was. They absolutely loved the boxing, and as we all know, the Mexican fans. Look, I'm with you guys. I don't know a hell of a lot. Espinoza, of course. I do remember seeing Vasquez against Cordina. He actually has his other loss was against Raymond Ford. That was back in 2022. I've seen a fair bit of Emiliano Vargas. I actually seen him live one day in Vegas sparring with Jorge Linares, and did pretty well in sparring against him. All 3 brothers actually sparred him that day. Raiz Alim, seen a little bit of him, I suppose, but that's probably about it. But like Top Rank are probably one of those promotional companies that, when they put on a show, you might know a lot about the guys on the card, but they always come to fight. They're always 50-50 fights. So regardless of whether we know a lot about them, I'm sure there'll be some good fights. And even just looking at the records, a lot of undefeated fighters on there. So obviously a lot of guys are trying to build. So check that out. That's actually on, if you want to watch this fight, guys, it's 8 o'clock on Monday morning. And no, it's not free. They're charging you $50 if you want to watch it on main event. So if you want to do that on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, jump on Main Event and buy it. Daniel, let's get to the main event. Naoya Inoue, 29-0 with 26 knockouts coming off that stoppage of the pretty overmatched Yejun Kim back in January. Of course, he was supposed to fight Sam Goodman up against Ramon Cardenas, 26-1, coming off a win over Brian Acosta back in February. His only loss was back in 2017 when he lost a 10-round decision to Danny Flores. What do we think of the main event?
Yeah, I actually noticed that about Cardenas. His last fight against Acosta was that was his last bout. And look, at Acosta was undefeated, so that was a good win for him. He's also had solid wins over Pedraza, Picasso, and Rubio as well. But those guys are not in a way. This guy's a lifetime fighter, mate, as we all know. He will carry on his winning ways, mate, and I expect him to dispatch of Cardenas late in the fight.
What about you, Cox? It is for the undisputed 122-pound title. Do you give Cardenas any chance whatsoever against the monster?
None whatsoever. And I went back and watched the Brian Acosta fight. Cardenas can be a slow starter, which he wasn't in the Acosta fight for some reason. So he's going to want to keep that up in the Inoue fight. But he boxed well for the first 2 rounds against Acosta and then fell into a war. And I think Acosta only had 4 knockouts and he dropped him pretty heavily in the 7th and came on strong late in the fight. And even though Cardenas won a unanimous decision, it was very close. And I thought it was sort of one of those fights that perhaps could have been a draw. He kind of just got lost at sea in those middle rounds there. He's got a nice left hook, but I don't think he has the footwork or the variety in his punches to really trouble Inoue at all. And again, we all know how good Inoue is, but I just think this is like 3-4 levels between them. I think there's such a gulf in class that
we've lost Daniel there. Yeah, he's back.
I thought you fell off the chair, mate.
Yeah, so did I. Keep going, Coxie. All good, mate.
Yeah, look, I think it ends fairly early, like 3-4 rounds, to be honest. I don't see this going very long at all. I guess it's a nice showcase fight for Inoue in front of the Yanks. Would have preferred a better opponent in the opposite corner. Again, you never write anyone off, and maybe Cardenas can surprise me. But I see it as being very much one-way traffic.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I watched a little bit of Cardenas again today, and a couple of it, just his highlights and his last fight with Acosta. And I think, look, typical he is Mexican, isn't he? Yeah, typical Mexican fighter. Loves to rip and hook and go to the body. He has got a really good left hook, and he's knocked a few guys out and knocked them down with that punch. So it's probably something that Inoue has to be conscious of. He is vulnerable sometimes, Naoya Inoue. He tends to leave himself open a little, a couple of times and can get caught. So he's got to be careful of that counter left hook. But I just think the Mexican style is not a great style to come up against Naoya Inoue. They like to get in close. They like to set, plant the feet, rip hook, as I said, and really work on the inside. But you don't see many Mexicans. Sorry, mate?
You're just not going to pin him down, are you?
No, that's right. And most Mexican fighters aren't overly fast with their hands or the feet. It's sort of they just grind you down and go through the gears over the round. So that's not the type of style I think you want against Naoya Inoue, who starts fast all the time. He's super quick, super powerful. Look, if Cardenas manages to go past 5 or 6 rounds, and you just never know, he might start to wear Inoue down and maybe get in close and start to go to work and have some success. But I just think this style of Cardenas, as I said, like most Mexican fighters who start slow and are slow with their hands, I just see him getting caught really early with a booming left hook or a booming right hand, and this being lights out in 2 or 3 rounds. So, and I'm with you guys. I would have been good to have someone a little bit more, I suppose, or better to fight in the States, especially at T-Mobile Arena. I'd be interested to see what the crowd's like there. And, I've been there a few times in the past, and if it's only half a crowd, you're really going to see it and hear it on the night because I think it's going to echo in there. It's a very, very big stadium. I'm sure they'll just probably section off the top and try and make it a bit more intimate. But if that's the case, I'm not sure why they wouldn't have had it somewhere a little bit smaller. But either way, it would be great to see Naoya Inoue on American soil again. I think he'll get a very, very impressive knockout of Cardenas. And then, what is it after that, Daniel? It's is it? It's not MJ after that, is it? Who are they talking about fighting after this one?
Yeah, I thought it was MJ, wasn't it?
Was it? I thought that might have been. Oh no, and then it was going to be maybe Nick Ball at the end of the year. I think they were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. There was an interview where the translator was translating for Inoue, and he put them in this order. So MJ, Ball, and Nakatani. But I don't know if he meant them in that order, like go to featherweight for a hit and run mission and come back down, or if he was just naming the three names he expects to fight next. But either way, I'd love to see that 3-fight run in any order. I think they're the type of opponents that would that'd make for great fights, and go a bit longer than what I expect this one to.
Yeah. So Daniel, the Sam Goodman conversation, where does he come into it? Since he's had two obviously opportunities to fight Naoya Inoue and because of the cut and everything. Where does he fall in the scheme of things? His name has not been mentioned once by Team Inoue since it all fell over.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that, Lyndon. I guess, with such a high-profile champion such as Inoue, you've got to keep him moving. And if the guy falls out, no matter, if the circumstances dictate that it really wasn't his fault, and people get cut in sparring, injuries happen. That's the game, and that's all part and parcel of professional boxing, and they've got to keep him busy. They've got to keep him fighting, and if Sam's fell off the radar through no fault of his own, I'll stress that.
Yep.
He's fallen. Not much you can do about it. All Sam can do is just get back in there and keep winning, and hopefully he gets another shot at him.
What about you, Coxie? Where do you see Sam in the scheme of things now? With obviously he's got the fight coming up. He's going to fight on Tim Tszyu's undercard. Is it a case of just having to wait now until Inoue goes up, or do you think he might just sneak in there, and if the opportunity arises, maybe there's one of these opponents like Picasso did, maybe he can jump in? What are your thoughts? Has he got an opportunity, do you think, to fight Inoue, or is that ship sailed?
Look, I reckon the best chance for Sam is if Inoue does go MJ, then Nick Ball, that maybe Inoue gets stripped of one of his belts and there's a vacant belt there for Sam to target, and then maybe after that, if Inoue wants his belt back, he does Canelo with Scull and comes back for it again. The planets have to align on that one. We don't know what's going to happen there, but it seems at the moment that Inoue has sort of his pretty much the next year mapped out for himself, what he wants to do. So that could very much be something that does happen, because obviously mandatories do need to be enforced sooner or later. And as Daniel said, through no fault of Sam's, it's just unfortunate that he kind of didn't jump in with Inoue when he had the chance earlier last year before the injuries happened. I think that's what, certainly fight fans overseas sort of say he's avoiding Inoue, but he was certainly ready before he got that injury, and that's just the way it goes. So, yeah, he's in a bit of a holding pattern. Keep him busy. I think a busy fighter is a good fighter, even if you're not getting... I'd much prefer to see a fighter staying busy, even against blokes they should beat, than sitting on their hands for 6 months, 9 months, waiting for the big opportunity. I think even if it's just sort of going through the gears, getting through a camp, and getting back in the ring against the guy I should beat, I'm always in favour of that.
So a couple of questions for both of you before we finish up in regards to Naoya Inoue. Daniel, we'll start with you. Who would you rather see him fight, Junto Nakatani or Bam Rodriguez, and who wins those fights if they did take place?
Oh,
this is a question without notice, as they say.
Yeah. And a good question too, by the way. It's got to be Nakatani, I think. Yeah, it's got to be Nakatani, Lyndon. The all Japanese affair. Can you imagine how big that fight will be over there? It'll be just, and you can imagine trying to get a ticket to go to that one. You'd have a better chance of winning the lottery, I reckon. I think he beats Nakatani. I do. I think Nakatani gives him his hardest fight, but I think Inoue can get away. I think his speed and his footwork help him, mate. So I think he still beats Nakatani. But God, what a fight that'll be! And I beats Rodriguez too. So yeah, I just don't see him being beaten at this point, mate. He's just that good.
What about you, Coxie?
Yeah, it's Nakatani for me too.
Knackers.
I really like that fight, and as good as Bam is, and as much of a fan of him as I am, he's obviously a much smaller guy. Again, in a way for me in that one, but in a close one, maybe a little bit like the first on air fight, like a real grinding affair that goes the distance. Where a lot of questions have asked of Inoue, and he comes through on top in a close one.
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit torn between the two. I would, if just on paper, or just looking at it plainly, I would say that I would rather Inoue versus Bam Rodriguez as far as the fight goes. But as far as just the whole theatrics of the whole thing, it's got to be Nakatani, the all-Japanese super fight. The biggest all-Japanese fight of all time. I'd probably prefer to see that one because of just the build-up and the fight itself, and then just the whole razzmatazz of everything, and two great fighters. But I would still prefer to see Bam, but as I said, the theatrics of this one, as far as the results goes, I think Bam Rodriguez would have a good chance of beating Inoue, but I suppose I would have to stick with him. As for Nakatani, I think Inoue wins that fight. I think his precise punching and just his speed, his footwork, just everything about him. I just think Nakatani being the taller man, I think that sort of works in Inoue's favour. I think he likes fighting the taller opponents. And I think he gets a job done in that one. But let's hope we get to see that, guys, because, what's the absolute super fights we've got at those lower weights. So we'll see what happens over the next sort of 6 or 12, 18 months, whatever it's going to be. So, guys, look, that's going to do it for this episode of Fight Week. Really appreciate both of you guys coming on. We'll 100% have you on again. There's plenty of big shows coming up. I can't remember which one's going to be the next one, but whatever it is, we'll get you on. Daniel, I know you've been on before, but Coxie, really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time. And I'm sure everyone out there got a lot out of it, and they can give their predictions as well. So thanks very much, guys. We'll catch you next time on Fight Week. See you then.